The opinions expressed on the Custody Queen Show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal, professional legal advice. The persons discussed are fictional and not based on actual clients.
Thought it was love, had kids in between. You can count on us, we're the Custody Queens. Yeah, you can count on us, we're the Custody Queens.
All right, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm Sam McBride. I'm here with Kristen Holstrom for another episode of CQ On Air. Today, we are joined with Jamie Lefkowitz. Welcome, Jamie. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you so much for having me, ladies. I'm so happy to be here.
And
I'm so excited for this episode.
Me too. And we're going to get all into all things Jamie, but just to kind of let all of our listeners know a little bit about Jamie. She is an immigration attorney and the founder of Lefkowitz. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie. That's how I pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay. Law Group. And she's with us today. She was admitted into the bar in 2013. Jamie has built a practice rooted in compassionate immigration advocacy, guiding clients through visa applications, asylum processes, and due process protections they deserve in deportation matters. Her unwavering dedication, integrity, and innovative approach have helped thousands pursue brighter futures. Jamie also brings experience in personal injury matters, which is impressive to me, handling those issues as they intersect with immigration. So again, welcome, Jamie. Thank you for being on our show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And I was super excited for this because it is really relevant to everything that's going on right now. I know that I have given I've had quite a few people reach out to me looking for an immigration attorney, and I always want to make sure that the information I give is someone that I would hire myself. And so I'm just really excited to have Jamie on, and to all of our listeners and our viewers and everybody from Go Country, to just social media. I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is a trusted referral partner and that she is able to answer any questions, and we'll make sure we give all of her contact information on our Instagram handles and make sure we get that over to you guys.
So before we get into grilling Jamie on all the questions that Kristen and I have, we're going to play a little game we call CQ Talk Box, which is essentially just an icebreaker. So the question of the day is, if you could master one skill instantly, what would it be and why?
If I could master one skill instantly. That's a good question.
Here, I'll you want me to start, Jamie, so you can have.
Let's see.
Okay.
And then I'll follow.
I usually have Sam go so I can go in my brain, but this is actually one I have ready to go. So if I could master one skill, it would be able to turn off my brain and go to bed at a specific time every single night and sleep 6 consecutive hours. If I could master that, I feel like I would be a completely different human being.
I like that. So I'm going to just take it out of the legal realm. Exercising. I have not mastered the exercising skill. I hate to say it, but just sitting behind a desk all these hours and years that I've been doing it, it's really hard for me to find a cutoff point and get up and go outside and do things for, my physical body. So if I could master one skill, it would be to turn off my brain and to exercise more. And to like it too. I don't really enjoy it, which is.
So you don't get that runner's high that people talk about? Because I played soccer for 20 years, and I am telling you, even to the last day that I played, running was truly the worst thing in the world to me. I never experienced that high ever.
You know what? No. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the skill. To enjoy it, to get that runner's high that everybody talks about, this feeling of, if I don't exercise, my day is ruined, and how much energy people feel when they do it. No, none of that ever sort of.
And I love working out. I truly love it, but just making myself a priority for things that aren't related to my kids and work is like really hard for me. I think I have like between 11 and 1 a.m., which usually I'm watching, Bravo or true crime on YouTube. But someone said something to me maybe like 2 decades ago. They're like, you never regret working out. Like nobody ever goes to the gym and goes, man, I really wish I didn't do that. And it's so true, but it's just so hard making the time for it. It really is.
I know, pulling yourself away from busy schedules, kids, like you said, it's tough, but
Yeah.
that would definitely be my skill, I think.
Oh, I love it. All right, Sam, what about you?
Okay, well, as Kristen knows, I like both of your guys' skills, but as Kristen knows, I do not suffer from narcolepsy, but I might as well have. So sleeping's never been too much of an issue for me. I have a lot of problems, but for some reason, I can sleep through anything.
Sam can
So
literally fall asleep in the middle of a workday on the floor in her office, and I am
yeah,
so jealous.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
we would travel together, and here I am, like, you know, you gotta bring a sound machine, and, you know, sometimes you need, like, some Benadryl or whatever, and I have to have the pitch at this, and I have to have an iPad going so I can tune out my noise, and Sam's just like, "Good night," and I'm
Yeah,
like, "That is
yeah,
so not fair."
I'm
I can
totally
really
Kristen.
turn that thing off. But if I could master one skill, I think it would be cooking, right? Like I can cook for myself or like my boyfriend, maybe like up to 4 people, but like, I'm just not talented in that way. And I always get so, I guess, like envious and inspired with a lot of my friends who just can like chef it up to everyone. So I think that would be it for me, for sure.
No, I love that, and I would love to know how to cook too. So when you
Yeah.
learn, Sam, share it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're
Okay, so
crockpot
we all
Kristen,
hit
so
exercise, cooking, and sleep.
yeah, exactly. But we're
Sounds
lawyers,
like
so
3 attorneys right there.
hey, it is what it is. All right, so let's get into it. So, Jamie, do you want to give us a little bit background information regarding your sort of legal expertise, personal injury, all that good stuff?
Sure. So I started out, actually, I guess we can take it back to law school. So when I was in law school, I was hell-bent on working for the district attorney's office. I was a solid intern there during my 3 years or so in law school, and was totally anticipating that that was going to be my career path. Um, they had opened the hiring pool for the district attorney's office. Long story short, I was in the 99th percentile of candidates, and they were only hiring 100th percentile and above. So
Wow.
I, hit the ground running at that point, looking for other, sources of employment. What can I do? Networking. And I happened to stumble across a Craigslist ad for an immigration position that they were hiring for, or a firm in downtown. And I had never spoken a word of Spanish. I knew nothing about immigration. This was in 2014, I want to say. So I went for the interview to this absolutely insane. It's now one of the busiest immigration defense law firms in Los Angeles, and arguably even probably California. But that's where I started. I was hired sort of on the spot, knowing absolutely nothing about immigration. And after about 2.5 years working there, I said, you know what? I think I could probably do this better on my own at this point. So I decided to branch off and start my own practice, Lefkowitz Law Group, specializing in immigration, and had been doing that very consistently. Had a total word of mouth practice that I had built, and then the pandemic hit, and courts all closed. And of course, for me, that was my bread and butter, was litigation and prosecuting, or essentially helping people, preventing them from getting deported. But I had to look for other resources and other, ways to make an income, in order to keep the practice afloat, in order to keep my guys on payroll at the time. So personal injury sort of came up, and I, networked a little bit and started a totally new branch of Lefkowitz Law Group, specifically for personal injury. At one point, I had 2 offices, one that was really just specializing in the personal injury, one that was really focused more on the immigration. And then I downsized completely recently and got rid of everyone, and I'm just now me as a solo attorney, but still handling personal injury and immigration.
Well, I love that you continue to reinvent yourself. I think that Kristen and I are always kind of every year, every quarter looking at what changes we're going to make. And so I think that that's powerful to kind of just continue on and grow with who you are. That's a great story. And if you saw me smirking a little bit, or me and Kristen smirking at each other, it's because I too found employment on Craigslist. I found Kristen actually on Craigslist and applied for the job. So that's how I got started. So that's why we were smiling. It sounds like all of us attorneys could not find work in 2014. And the same year, I think Craigslist must have been like a really good.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, who the heck is running an ad for me on Craigslist, you know? And I think
mean,
Sam was the
LinkedIn
only,
existed, but yeah, I
think
remember.
Sam was the only diamond in the rough. I definitely got some interesting applicants from Craigslist.
I imagine so.
Yeah, but that we were both laughing. But I also love, I think a lot of professionals and attorneys specifically through the COVID era is, you know, Sam and I went from being in court 5 days a week to, you know, bringing in multiple clients to the courts being closed for a period of time. And the only thing the courts were hearing were domestic violence restraining orders. And even that was on a limited basis based on the counties. And, you know, I feel like we were all in such survival mode for that period of time. And I had never worked remote. And I felt like there was no cutoff with the day. I was taking client calls at 10 p.m. I was taking client calls at 7 a.m. And I think we were all working so hard. You know, we have close to 100 employees here. And Sam and I are thinking, how do we make sure that everybody still has a job in 6 months? But I think we kind of went through a similar burnout a little bit, that it sounds like you might have went from tripling your practice and then you kind of start going back going, okay, quality of life, you know, and you start making priorities a little bit more important.
Right. That's exactly right. And I think, you know, back then too, in order to qualify for, you know, the loans and the PPP protections that they were offering the government, you had to keep your employees on payroll to do that.
Yeah.
And when
a pretty high percentage too.
Yeah, I mean, and when your bread and butter is litigating, which is what mine was, you know, these loans were taking a while. PPP was taking a while at the time. There was like a total backlog. So it was a struggle of what am I going to do to bring in an income? And it wasn't just me that I was, you know, obviously worried about. There were families that they had to feed my employees.
Yeah.
So, you know, you put your brain sort of, you know, you hit the pavement running and you see what you can do. And yeah, it was fortunately very successful, almost too successful.
a little too successful.
Yeah, exhausting.
But then it allowed you to regroup, re-identify what's most important to you, and then kind of, like Sam said, reinvent yourself. And Sam and I are doing that constantly. And, you know, I probably drive Sam crazy because one minute I'm like, I want to conquer the world. I want to have offices in every single state and every single county. And then other days is like, I kind of just want to work at, you know, maybe like Target or Walmart for a day and just hand out carts, because maybe at the end of the day, you know, I'm not, you know, being threatened with a letter, or I'm not handling, you know, an employee issue. And I just want to go home and be like, well, that was a pretty uneventful day.
I get that, you know, and we wear two hats, I think, at a minimum of two hats, right? We're an attorney on the one hand, so we have to be ethical and we have to always be mindful of the clients and, you know, considering those factors, but we're also a business owner. And a lot of the times, you know, those two things, they conflict, absolutely. But it's between one of those two hats, you're never stopped. It's nonstop all the time. And it can be, you know, as you said, it can be exhausting and cause major burnout. So, yeah.
And for everyone listening, if you haven't decided to go to law school, this is your sales pitch to go.
Yes. Do you want to ignore the ability to cook, sleep, or exercise? Go to law school.
Apply here.
No, it's true.
About once a month, I get someone that will ask me, you know, either they're trying to get information about Samurai, or it's someone genuinely interested. It's like, would you do it all over again? And I think depending on the day, you get a different answer. But, I love what Sam and I do, and like you, I was put on this earth to really help people and problem solve and be bigger than myself. But it's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that. I tell you
Yeah,
that.
I have a way with mental gymnastics with myself, and I think I decided the answer to that question for me is like, would I do it again if I knew everything I know now? Probably not. But am I glad that I did it? Yeah. It's just I wouldn't want to have to go back and go through that again. So it was like I'm one and done. I'm glad that where I sit today, but it was a lot of work, and there were a lot of seasons and a lot of growth there for me.
A lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people look at us where we're at now and they don't realize where we started. I was 15, basically, working for my dad at the time, typewriting. That's how freaking long ago it was. I was typewriting addresses on envelopes. And so I think people, they look at your success or your hard work, but they don't realize how many times you were the last one to leave the office or the first one into the office or working 60-hour weeks or taking calls on the weekends. They don't realize how much of that went into 15, 20 years.
Right, absolutely. And it's not for the faint of heart. I don't think that law school would be something that anybody would regret doing, if you're willing to put in hard work. It's not, I mean, I don't know, you guys tell me, but did you find the work itself challenging? I mean, it's not calculus, right? It's just a lot of mental
It's just a
stamina.
lot.
Yeah.
It's
It's the
voluminous.
time. Yeah. It's the time. It's
The
the
reading,
volume.
yeah.
And absorption of materials. I think any of it separated out into a small segment would be pretty easy for most people to digest, but it's the volume of it, for me at least it was. And then just at the time of going in law school, you're also trying to hold a job, like you're balancing a lot of extra hats while also doing something that should probably be a full-time job.
Yeah, I worked during the day and then I went to law school at night. And I think one of my last semesters, I was taking 5 or 6 classes. And I remember the dean calling me and going, "This isn't like you shouldn't be doing this. This is going to be." And I was like, "Nope, I am determined to be done." And I did it and I did well. But man, I don't know that I could go back and do that again. That was without kids and a lot more energy. But I actually thought law school for the most part was pretty mundane and a way to weed people out. And I actually did not learn a whole lot, or actually much at all, other than how to think on the spot, about how to be a lawyer. I actually think it was just $150,000 of student loans and 3 years of reading 1,000 pages a night of law that doesn't apply anymore.
Right. That's so true. The life skills in general, though, I feel like come from real life. And
Yes.
it's something that you don't learn in school, ever. They don't teach you practical skills. They don't teach you how to run a law firm. They don't teach you, you know,
How to communicate with clients effectively, deal with conflict.
even mental health issues, for example. I mean,
Agreed.
struggling, what to do as a practitioner, if you're just
Agreed.
not feeling right. There's all these practical concerns that these black letter law books and these cases, you know, would never teach. So I kind of agree.
I agreed. And I don't think it was until like a year, maybe 2 years into being an attorney, I was like, oh, that's what, IRAC really means, right? Because it's like, I feel like you memorize the law, you understand it to an
Yeah.
extent, but until you buy a house or until you, transmute, like, I feel like you're just memorizing and you're just regurgitating.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, wait, this is literally what they say when the light bulb goes on? Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. That was 5 years later.
I feel that's so real, Kristen. Like I
It
can
is.
vividly remember, basically being too bored to pay attention in con law class, and then having a case and being like, "Wait, that's a due process issue. Like I get it now." Yeah,
Yeah, I
you figure it out
struggled with
later.
con law. That was
Yeah,
that was over my head. I really did not understand the whole strict scrutiny. And, and until you're like, oh, okay, so I get it. Somebody wants to put a concert up and they want to play music until two, oh, okay, like it's all
yeah.
coming together. But I have a funny story. I actually in con law, I really struggled with con law, and it was my least favorite class, and I was in my last year. And I remember we were briefing cases, and I actually had an In Touch magazine inside my con law book, and I was reading it, and I was like, "Oh, my professor's not going to call me." He called me last class, and sure enough, he called me, and everyone in my row and probably behind me knew I was reading probably the recent Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake update, and I remember standing up going, yeah, like, can I just take a quick bathroom break, professor? And I just remember that so vividly going, I am busted. Busted. All right,
Yes.
Jamie, let's get into the good stuff. I
Let's do
want
it.
you to tell everybody listening, what are the biggest misconceptions about ICE raids that you hear from your clients, your families? Like, tell us a little bit about that process.
Oh my goodness. The biggest misconceptions, I feel like it's there's this assumption that individuals that are getting detained by ICE are automatically picked up, and from there they're put on a plane and they're sort of shipped off, and that's the end of it. Whether you agree or not, I guess, with this, everybody in our country, in physically our country, is entitled to due process of law. So even those individuals that are getting detained, they are going before judges. They do have a right to sort of plead their case and make, again, a case for themselves as far as why they deserve to be here. Immigration law or the body of laws that govern, the immigration, it's called the Immigration and Nationality Act, is the second most complicated body of laws that we have in the United States. The first is our tax code, which none of us understand. I don't think anyone of us understands. But it's a really complicated system, immigration. And not only do you have to be deserving of, being able to stay here, but you have to qualify for a way to avoid deportation. And it's not as simple as a lot of people would sort of, think. People that have been here a long time, people that want to be here, doesn't necessarily mean that they will be eligible or able to stay here, which is unfortunate. But there's so much behind the scenes that takes place in between those, the time that people are getting picked up and the time that they actually are put on a plane. That has to happen, and that does take place. And the process is a very dense process. It can take a lot of years with appeals and whatnot before somebody's actually deported. I think another huge misconception is what makes somebody subject to deportation. It's not just being here physically without any lawful status. That in and of itself, just being here physically without lawful status, is not an immigration violation such that you would get deported for it. You have to have either entered illegally or you have to have overstayed a visa. Those two things, separately, obviously, could make somebody deportable from the United States. And a lot of these ICE raids that are taking place, unfortunately, these individuals that are getting picked up, they don't understand, and they don't know that they don't have to say anything, but they end up admitting to the fact that they either came here illegally, or are in overstay with their visa, and that's how they end up subject to deportation. That's how they end up in deportation proceedings. There are deportation proceedings. There's an entire court dedicated to just these issues. So those are two of the biggest ones. But there's countless more. If we had many, many hours, I would tell you all.
Well, Jamie, I think we're going to have a part 2 with you again next month, because we haven't even touched on so many of the questions related to immigration. And from what I'm hearing is that if you have a legal issue regarding immigration, you need to keep your mouth quiet, say less, and contact Jamie. Am I right on that?
Yes, absolutely. Contact me. But certainly, most importantly, don't say anything. Um, it's a scary situation to be in, no doubt. If you're faced with a raid or, a bunch of officers. I mean, think about, I've personally never been in a DUI checkpoint, but those types of situations where there's lights in your face and there's multiple officers and they've got guns and tasers, not speaking is hard, I imagine.
Yeah.
It would take a lot of, I'm Jewish, so we say chutzpah, a lot of balls, to not say anything. But truly, the only way to protect yourself in those situations and to avoid getting detained or getting, taken into custody is by staying silent and not admitting that you came
And
here.
that applies to every area of law for people listening. That applies really, truly to family, criminal, hire the expert, get advice. And a lot of people are just naive and they think, people might be your friend and they're just having a friendly conversation, and that's not always the case. But we are unfortunately out of time. So I would love for Sam and I to have Jamie back on when we are have her back on next month. I think this would be amazing to have a part 2. We haven't even got through the process, Sam, right? And so if you are looking to hire Jamie, or even just to get some information regarding the immigration or the personal injury, which we will get to next month, Jamie, what is the best number they can reach you at?
818-979-9181 is my office telephone number. That is the best number to reach me on.
And we will make sure that we post all of this information on our Custody Queens Instagram handle so that you guys can go to the bios and get the information for all of our trusted referrals. And we want to thank everybody for joining us this Saturday. And every Saturday, we love our Go Country fam. And remember, anything that you need for family law, you can call us at 1-800-419-7772. That is 1-800-419-7772. And
remember, let love rule.